Not only did this movie go full Nicolas Cage, which was great, but the experience went full Nicolas Cage when I had to leave the theater halfway through, stand in the hallway, and wait for a tornado that touched down 4 miles from our theater.
I got the snacks.
I had to take shelter for a good 20 minutes, but you know what? Nicolas Cage got us through, because that's what he does. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, a movie that had me very intrigued. I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan. The guy is awesome when he's in his element, but did this film deliver? We're going to talk about it. Stay tuned, because this weekend we're doing top 5 Nicolas Cage movies. So creatively unfulfilled and facing financial ruin, Nick Cage must accept a $1 million offer to attend the birthday of a dangerous superfan. Things take a wildly unexpected turn when Cage is recruited by a CIA operative and forced to live up to his own legend, channeling his most iconic and beloved on-screen characters in order to save himself and his loved ones. Rated R for language throughout sexual references, drug use, and violence. I would definitely not say this is a movie for kids, but hey, if they watch National Treasure now, in 10 years, this could be one for him. And yes, I was anticipating and expecting the most Nicolas Cage movie ever, because that's the entire push behind the marketing. We want you to experience full Nicolas Cage, and just that trailer, Cage shouting out all of these crazy things that maybe are references or nods to his prior films, or just what we have come to know from the actor himself, but also playing these exaggerated characters on screen. But this is interesting because Cage is able to play himself, but in a slightly different way that may feel over-exaggerated. I don't know if it is or not, because seeing Cage in interviews, he always has this energy and enthusiasm, but the route that this movie goes, at least the way I thought it was going, was heading in a direction that made it all feel exaggerated. And that's one thing that kind of worried me. As we progressed, I said, I don't want this to become like a cliche action movie or this conventional, like, I'm a secret agent and I've got to go and take out these people and save my family. And they even hit on it in the movie multiple times. It's like movies nowadays, they go down a very specific route. And how are we going to play with that concept and switch everything up? And this film, thankfully, does. But there are moments where I thought to myself, this is going in that direction. I hope it doesn't end up in that direction. And those were really the only concerns I had throughout this movie, because other than hitting on some of those cliches, which eventually kind of flip everything on their head in the third act of this movie, I love the fact that this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. We know we're going to get Cage and references to movies like The Rock and Con Air and National Treasure and basically every film he's been a part of, even the ones that he believes, and he says it in the movie. Well, that's an underrated film that no one ever talks about. I'm super proud of it, and here's why I'm proud of it. The movie is full of these references where he is speaking of his career in a way that feels like it's coming from the heart. Like this entire movie, it wasn't written by Cage, Kevin Etten, and Tom Gormican. There are writers here, and directed by Tom Gormican, but it feels as if Cage had so much to say within this movie, whether it be about his films, his career, the track he is on, the track he has been on, how other people feel about his movies, and how he sees that very clearly in this film. Because even though it's an exaggerated story about his life, it is still about his life. And we get these wonderful Cage-isms when he's by himself, whether that be talking to different versions of himself or just reflecting upon the career that he's had and how, he shouldn't choose this film because people are going to see him in that way. But maybe this move, even though it's a smaller movie with an unknown director or writer, that's the direction he should go in. These are conversations we have in the movie. And I didn't know it was going to get that deep. I just thought it was going to be a pure comedy where we're playing on all of these things, and it is at its core, because every time Cage does something like that, it's hilarious. And the movie makes sure to give everyone that moment, whether it be Lily Sheen as his daughter Addie, Sharon Horgan as Olivia, his ex-wife. It's really those that are surrounding him throughout most of the film. We do have our two agents here in Tiffany Haddish and Ike Barinholtz. Their characters are funny, and I enjoyed their screen presence, but I was more so into what we got at the start of this film. Nick Cage, his career choices, his family, the movies that he loves. There is one reference that film Twitter and movie fans and people that love this franchise, they make that reference in this movie, and I'm like, they did not just make a reference to, and I don't want to say which one it is, that film, the most wonderful film that I never imagined this film would be focusing on right now. It was awesome. It's like, you totally understand your audience right now. You know what is going to make everyone laugh, but at the same time go, yep, you're right. And when you see that scene in the film, you're just going to be so happy. You're going to be smiling from ear to ear, but it's always played for comedy in a way that has you laughing so hard. It's super self-aware. Like, it gave me Tropic Thunder vibes. But at the same time, it still holds those like almost romantic comedy vibes, even though it's just focused on two guys who become really good friends. They bond over screenwriting and movies and all of these things that's like speaking to me because I love all of these elements. But there's this tension between them that we discover as we progress through the movie. And you don't know what Nicolas Cage is going to do because this isn't Nicolas Cage playing another character. This is the actor, Nicolas Cage, getting in this situation. He has to get himself out, and he's using comedy to appeal to us, his wit, and his acting ability to maneuver through this. I also have to say Pedro Pascal was awesome in this movie. He's dynamic, he's hilarious, his chemistry with Cage is through the roof, and every time they were on screen together, it was fantastic. I will say, when the movie started, I was getting a bit nervous because the pacing was slightly uneven, and the way it was edited together had me kind of like, okay, I'm not feeling the flow of this film, but once we start to settle down and we focus more on Cage and his family, and that's a big part of this film, it feels like such a personal story, even though you know these are performances. Now, that starts to go away in the third act because that's when it becomes kind of like, and it's funny because they mentioned something earlier in the film, and then the movie starts to turn into that with those cliches, and I'm like, oh man, we're going in that direction to where the movie's not going to end nearly as interesting as it started out, but then it does something. It makes a decision right at the end of the film to where I said, you know what? That actually made it worth it because I didn't expect that. The movie is slightly predictable, but that moment I did not expect, and it culminates and brings everything together in such a way that made my heart happy. So yes, I was laughing, and yes, I was completely on board with how they were handling Cage, but it's an emotional film on a level that I just did not expect, and it made it easily one of the best experiences of the year, other than when the tornado almost killed us all. Before I give you my score, the best way to show your support is by dropping that like down below. It helps the algorithm, and be sure to come back. We're talking more Nicolas Cage on this channel this weekend. I expected Massive Talent to celebrate Cage in a self-aware way, but I did not expect that level of heart. Featuring hilarious references and one-liners, everything is combined so authentically. It goes full Cage, but feels like a celebration of cinema as a whole. All of the other movie references and filmmaking talk and behind the scenes of Cage's career, which was really cool. Shut up, Boston. I'm going an 88% with my score. I loved this movie. It was so much fun. One of the best movies I've seen this year. And fans of Nicolas Cage, and even if you're not, I think you'll appreciate this film, even though there are some deep cuts in there. All right, guys, you're the best. I'll see you soon.